MSD podcast, Thought Talk. It was after constant requests for podcasts that I finally gave in, and with the assistance of some of the HQ team, the MSD podcast begun. I asked many MIL CQC and MIL self-defense exponents, proponents and instructors and enthusiasts what they would like in MIL tradecraft, close combat and self-defense podcasts. The majority wanted to focus on the tactics and skills. Some were interested in real-life situations, including accounts from our people that had used skills and actions on. There were some that wanted history and MIL instructing lineage content. What most didn't want was interviews type content. They wanted MIL self-defense and close combat tradecraft information, tips and training advice. Most were interested in audio only, as they wanted to listen to the podcast when driving, running or relaxing. A lot of our listeners are instructors, exponents and proponents or serious enthusiasts of our European military, close combat and military self-defense. We got suggestions of doing some video shorts and putting some still shots with the audio podcasts. There was requests for content on our brain to boot, MIL mental toughness for close combat and other specialist skills training like close personal protection and defensive tactics. I have been an exponent, proponent and instructor for over 50 years and have been a MIL instructor for over 25 years. I have been a skills developer, tradecraft, public speaker, consultant and advisor, as well as a tradecraft publisher of manuals and magazines and video training resources producer. The audio podcast content was going to be somewhat different in delivery than instructing verbiage. That is a set process of state, explain, demonstrate, questions, answers, safety practices, and commence, skills training, and instructor critiquing. So I undertook some recording practice to determine best ways of explaining and delivering audio-only tradecraft content, being involved in every aspect of the military, close combat and military self-defense tradecraft, and constantly being involved in course management as well as courses instructing, facilitating, including exported courses, meant the podcast would have to often be done wherever I was based and delivering training. So it was more important that the content was understandable by those that had undergone MIL CQC tradecraft training, and also understandable to the practical realist seeking such training. Podcasts never being recorded in a specialist studio and being recorded by myself where and when time permitted may well not be high quality technical recordings, but it is the content that is most important. I am not a believer in being able to learn to a level of mastering skills online or by simply manuals or video clips. However, manuals and video training resources for those that have undertaken or are undertaking training from a qualified military close combat instructor could certainly be handy for exponents, continuation training and practice. I found myself constantly thinking about the tradecraft subject matter, including thinking about what I would cover next in subject matter, as well as additional related subject matter. Being so well versed in my tradecraft, I can talk about it with ease. This was important when instructing specialist services and groups, being able to, at short notice, export such expertise without having to take training resources with me. It is also an important capability to have in the development of tactics and skills, and gaining high-level competency and capability in such drawing on tradecraft training expertise is also extremely helpful in an actions on under threat in relation to fast mapping assessment, decision making, and the initiation and execution of decided skills. Over my long-term involvement as an instructor, especially on Civi enthusiast courses, I get asked, how would you deal with this? How would you combat or counter that? And use a same or similar principle based process to threat assess, decide, and based on my prior training and experience, decide on best option, threat neutralization. Having put in tens, if not hundreds of thousands of hours over the decades, describing, detailing, and instructing, I was well accustomed to fluid, fast-talking deliveries, which I found I had to slow down and break up so it would be understandable to wide-ranging levels of listeners in relation to backgrounds or limited knowledge of our European military, armed and unarmed combat, and military self-defense. So my thought talk verbiage for me was born by simply conveying what I was thinking at real time at a reduced speed. The most important thing to me was that interested listeners could understand what I was saying. I have always wanted to control all our own publishing, productions, and training resources for good reason, that being able to assist those seriously interested in our training systems with advice and direction personally. Mass marketing to the masses would prevent the personal support, and as the saying goes, attract the masses and you will attract all too many misfits. The podcasts were for those that wanted European mil, close combat, and military self-defense from the tradecraft master instructor source. The tradecraft itself has proven its worth in seeing those that are not dedicated and committed self-eliminate, along with those that are not practical hands and boots on realists. As it has turned out, now that the podcasts have settled down, it is the serious types that know what they want that predominantly are our audience, and it is mostly a captive audience that not only listen to the podcast but also ask training and related tradecraft questions and are attending courses and requesting training resources. While I certainly do not and cannot lay claim to providing highly technical studio quality podcast recordings, as the listeners say, it is the content that matters most, and they comment that the thought talk, cadence, verbiage, and descriptions are easy to understand. Over the decades, I have had to come up with many training resources that have been required for basic enabling training as well as continuation training resources. There were not such resources in most cases available, so they had to be developed. Drills, CQC skills to command are one such major undertaking that included 12 audio CDs of instruction to command. These 12 CDs included unarmed offensive assault and unarmed counter-offensive assault under expected as well as unexpected actions on. This provided a means for exponents, proponents, and instructors to be able to, in their own location, undertake drills training to command, learning the skills by name or title and by execution. I had to utilize means and methods I was taught under my mil close combat instructor training, including utilizing a slightly modified version of the sneaky boots method for an instructor to instruct a candidate. This was something I learnt from Colonel Applegate from his OSS instructing days, shadowing the training candidate, whispering instructions in his ear as they moved through the specialist training facilities. The Phase 1 Basic, MIL CQC, and MSD training resources, DVDs, were another such in-house developed training resource. The nature of what we are instructing often determines how the finished training resource ends up. This is because of the purpose of the skills, and with them being military tradecraft skills sets, the need for them to be delivered the MIL CQC way. I can remember in the early 90s when instructing CQB courses to military elite and a course manager watching old film footage that included CQC drill skills to command and him asking me about it and if they could have it included on the courses. I informed him that it was more for regular forces basic training than elite forces irregular training. He commented that they come from the regular forces and were well versed in military drills training and understood the importance of such drills training at an entry and enabling level. He went on to say they had not seen the MIL CQC drills to command like in the video, and thought they would be of major value on their courses, especially for skills learning and retention. That was the introduction of CQC drills, skills to command on our military, including military elite courses, a tradecraft skill set that could have been lost if it was not for it being taught to me by my now late World War II instructors. Those undertaking CQC skills drills to command learn all the titles, commands, movements, directions required for everyone to execute skills to command at the same time. Reintroducing CQC drills skills to command meant exponents learnt skills by title and execution, which sped up the learning process and aided in skills retention. This produced better testing outcomes through exponents knowing the skills by name, execution, and ensured they were correctly initiated and employed in regard to setup components as well as execution components and directions of movement, range and ground cover, etc. Instructors have to get their verbiage squared away in the delivery of the CQC drills skill to command to ensure the commands are very much brevity orientated, clear and to the point. The podcasts very much also have to be fit for purpose, as in at a cadence that fits with audio listening considerations to enable listeners to hear and understand the subject matter. It's not about state-of-the-art recordings, it's about the subject material. With my training resources, it's all about delivery, service, and being willing and available to provide serious enthusiasts and practitioners of our European MIL CQC and MSD with advice and information. It's not all about high fidelity, it's about fit for purpose MIL CQC MSD training resources developed and provided by MIL CQC master instructors for those that seek and are serious about training in such tradecraft training skill sets. Thought Talk provides real-time information and some outline instructions by means of voice of command. Thought Talk at real time enables the provision of MIL self-defense and CQC audio that the master instructor draws from extensive knowledge and instructing capabilities. The subject itself under recording enables the master instructor to cover wide-ranging aspects, specific tradecraft training content of the tradecraft subject matter through Thought Talk. This provides the listener with not only the core subject content, but also strategies, contingencies, and auxiliary content through the podcast recording being done by a MIL CQC MSD master instructor utilizing his qualification, expertise, and knowledge, as well as experience and instructing service, combined with his mind's eye memory bank to think and talk at real time, and also advanced think about additional same or related subject matter content. The speed and tone of delivery of MIL Close Combat and MIL Self-Defense Thought Talk is very much thought process dialogue in our field of expertise to fit with the level of release information in a plain, simple, and basic, easy to listen to and understand format. Some listeners take notes from the podcasts and advise they find it easy to do with very little stopping and replaying of information. As I always say, you cannot learn to master skills by any other way than hands and boots on, intensive and extensive training with the building up of intensity commensurate with the individual exponents, capabilities and makeup, and that being both physical and mental makeup. A lot of listeners will never undertake our CQC or MSD training as they simply are not in a position or are not up for the realities and challenges of training and testing, but they are interested in the tradecraft training, while others understand the practical realities of the spoken words and from there apply and course join, experiencing it for themselves, hands and boots on. The reason why we do not publish or produce advanced or specialist content is out of responsibility to ensure it doesn't get into the wrong hands and is not abused or misused. And this is why we do not provide online training or the like. That is not a best practice to achieve skills mastery. There is no substitute for anything but extensive hands and boots on training, including volunteering for testing and surpassing testing requirements. However, what the podcasts have done have answered questions of listeners in regard to what our European MIL, CQC and MSD is all about, and this has led to their seeking such training. The MSD podcasts, for me, was something that I had not wanted to do and was not interested in, as it was not hands-on instructing training provision. Another reason why I was not keen on recording podcasts was simply because I run at capacity schedules year in, year out, and had very little downtime, which has become even less now. What it has done has proven its place in the provision of information directly from the source and has answered many listeners' questions and ensured they could identify if MIL, CQC and MSD was for them or not. For me, it was the old dog learning a new capability, that being how to record and edit a podcast that is all about factual information and less about finesse and high-level technical recording capability. Hopefully, it may improve with time, but it's really not necessary if the listeners can understand the spoken word.